So we can either hold the rejection that people are offering us over whoever it is that we have to say out loud that we are in order to be more healed and more free, or we can hold the child that God created, that he put all those things into on purpose because there are intentions for those things. But we can't hold both at the same time. So if we can hold on to what Jesus sees in us, that rejection will not stick to us. I love you.
Love you too.
All right. So kids are in bed. I think it might get emotional today, and I just really don't want to be interrupted by the kids while we're doing this because I don't want the flow to break. Welcome to the NeuroSpicy Soul Care podcast. I am your host, Carla Padilla.
And I am your co-host, Frank Padilla.
We're here today. We're going to talk about what it means to us when we say that we have autism and that we have ADHD. So we both have that profile, what some would call high functioning. I think a better term is a high masking autism. That's a whole episode in itself. We're not going to go into that right now. But high masking autism and inattentive ADHD, but it does look different on both of us due to our gene expression and life experience. First, I'd like to start with just saying that even though we have a podcast now, and this is basically turned into like a very missional thing for me, including doing coaching for people who are struggling with issues around neurodivergence and lifestyle change that goes with that. I have had a very hard time fundamentally looking at people and saying declaratively, I am autistic or I have autism. I might say words like, I've been diagnosed with, it's like there's something about like where I've just like needed like a degree of separation from it. Even though it has been really helpful and really healing for me, there's something about like saying it that still feels really hard. Like I'm just afraid I'm going to be met with rejection, just like straight up. Even though stereotypically people who are autistic don't pick up on other people's emotions or whatever, in the high masking functions, almost on the other side of the coin, relationships and body language almost become like a special interest where you study them so hard, not only so that you can know what's happening, but also so that you can throw clues as to what's happening on your side as well. I feel like that's a girl thing, maybe. Is that a thing for you? No, not a thing for him. Definitely a thing for me. So I can see so quickly when somebody's uncomfortable with something that I've said. And that's part of why I can't maintain eye contact because I get so caught up in trying to process how the other person's feeling about what I'm saying that it's really hard for me to absorb that and then continue the conversation in a way that isn't influenced by that. So it's been very hard to be able to do that. And so if you're out there and you know you need to advocate for yourself somehow, or you know that like you have this diagnosis, or even if you're self-diagnosed, and you want to explain yourself, you want to give context for something that you did or something that you could tell somebody thought was weird or whatever. You don't always know how people are going to take it, even people who are very close to you. So I see you. It can be uncomfortable, but I want you to know that like autism is something that you were born with. It's a neurotype. That means you have a type of brain. There's a lot of theories around this, genetic versus epigenetic, infant trauma, toxins, vaccines, all these things. And um, while I will say, I believe 100%, I think this is just my theory, the way this kind of pieces together for me. When you look back generationally, you can see a lot of similar traits in people. But I do think when things get to the point where they manifest in a more problematic way, some of those more significant things like heavy toxicity and heavy trauma play a role into some of the more significant symptoms for us. But I do believe that it's just a brain type you were born with that is more sensitive to toxins, more sensitive to just general sensory stuff, more sensitive to the things that people are throwing at you. And like, you don't have to feel like you're a mistake or that those things about you are a mistake. Something that I have really been grappling with very, very presently. I'm going to share that a little bit later, but yeah, we're just going to kind of go one for one and just share some, and this might look like anecdotes or just things that feel like quirks that now we feel like a little differently about, or symptoms, things that set us off, that kind of stuff. And you'll just kind of get a feel for like how it might look different for me versus Frank, which can split into a bunch of different categories, or what it might look like for you. This is not diagnostic criteria. These are like life experiences that might potentially, as a collection, as a constellation, if you will, point you towards an idea that maybe you're working with similar things. Do you have one locked and loaded, or you want me to go first?
I don't have one locked and loaded, but
Okay.
actually, I might actually have one.
Okay.
We're talking about experiences, right?
Yeah, experiences. Like, what is it when you say I'm a person who's autistic? Like, what
Yeah.
does that mean? Like, what
Oh,
it
yeah.
would be an indication of that or a
One
piece
of
of that?
one of the things that I'm really bad at is actually figuring out if somebody's being sarcastic or not.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things. So I'm pretty good at guessing if I'm looking at them. But if on the phone, right, or if I'm not looking at somebody, I can't tell they're joking or um, that it's not meant to be taken for face value. I think
Mm.
Carly, you've seen that happen.
Yeah, Frank was super uncomfortable the first time he came home for, was it Thanksgiving? And just the way my family, very, very sarcastic. We've kind of toned it down over the years a little bit, but it was at its peak probably. And Frank just like didn't know what to do with himself. He like couldn't even be in the room most of the time. He just couldn't process the fact that people just talk that way to each other all the time. So that was
Yeah.
tiring for him to try to figure out what was happening. Um,
Yeah, and I guess you're right. I did pick up a lot of body cues from people because when I'm looking at people, I can more or less guess that they're being sarcastic. Yeah, that's kind of been one of the things with me. Yeah.
Alright. um, Something for me is that, and again, some of these are going to feel like, oh, yeah, that feels significant. Some of those are going to be like, whatever, everybody does that. And you can just decide as you go along, right? Like, that's totally fine. Um, I believe that there are right cups for right beverages.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Like, there are juice cups, there are milk cups, there are water cups, there are coffee cups, there are teacups. Like, and that's not like just like, it's just like there's something that, like, a size and a texture. I prefer glass cups myself. Um, yeah, and I am a beverage goblin, as it's been called on the internet.
yeah.
I like to have a water. I like to have a fizz or like a little tangy thing, like maybe kombucha, something like that, and then a coffee. That's like my non-alcoholic brunch combo of beverages is like my favorite, just as a round robin of
Mm.
like beverage stims.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to tactile issues, I think you have way more than I do.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I don't
Hmm.
have very many of them.
It almost bothers me how little it bothers you.
Yeah, yeah. Like handling sticky things or like slimy things.
Stepping in water.
Oh, you want to talk about the socks and water situation?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
The amount of like screaming and throwing of socks.
Mm.
Because, okay, but to like put that in perspective, if it's the beginning of the day and like I've started my day in a quiet way and I've spent time with the Lord, which I don't always do first thing I wake up. Sometimes like I'm like an 11:30 Bible reader. It just works for me, like after the first wave of activity is done. But anyway, what were we talking about? Oh yeah. So if I'm that was a story. That was one of them. There it is. Um but yeah, like if I'm good, if I'm like well slept and like well fed and I've been drinking water and I have my vitamins in my body and I step in water, it might not send me over the edge. If it is 4:30 p.m. and I've had a busy day and I'm trying to get three things done and there's the TV's on and the kids are talking and there's the noises from the water in the sink is going, I will probably lose my mind. So it's a reflection of how much background stimulation is happening for me, how much I respond to a sensory input.
Okay. Let's see.
I like that as a principle,
What?
like just for general autism management. The stronger you're responding to a sensory input, the more stuff you have going on in the background.
That's usually what's the case.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
whether
never just like a single isolated
yeah,
incident.
it's usually like a RAM usage thing. Like
Mm,
if you're just like in the background, like thinking about like a financial thing, or you're waiting for something, or just general like long-term stress or chronic pain can also really stunt your ability to process sensory stuff.
mm.
Yeah. And also I'm wearing my I call these my safety sweatshirts. Unfortunately, I only have two of these. I can't seem to find any more without paying more than I want to pay on the internet. These are the Adidas Batwing sweatshirts. They're the best. So literally, I put these things. These are like the Frank's Red Hot of clothes. I put this. I put it on everything. T-shirts. Like, let's dress it up, right? This is like the San Diego professional collar here.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, these really give me an extra level of
Mm.
support. Make
Here's
me
something.
comfy.
I don't blink when I'm playing video games or watching TV, and the
Get a
kids
little
do
buggy.
too. Yeah, sometimes I'll just stare. I have to remember to blink when I'm watching TV.
Is that like classic ADHD?
I don't know. It's something that I do. I
Yeah.
can't imagine it's neurotypical.
Yeah. Oh no,
No,
no.
no,
I
no.
I don't think it is. Yeah, I mean ADHD and ASD have so much overlap, which is why like I'd rather just speak to it from an experience as opposed to like these are the ASD things and these are the ADHD things. They're just it's very blurry because it's a spectrum, as they say. Anyway, I have horrible time blindness.
Yeah, me too.
Um, I'm very good at measuring like a small number of minutes in body. Like if you have like pizza ESP, where you just know it's been 12 minutes because you've made so many
Pizza.
pizzas. Yeah, where you just like know the timer's gonna go off like within like a minute and a half. Anyway,
There's two different type of time blindnesses, right?
yeah.
You have one, and I think I have the other.
I have like macro time blindness where
So
like I can forget what day it is like three times a day.
yeah, I have better macro awareness. I think I have what I like to call I'm a time optimist. I'm like, you know what? I've got like 15 minutes. I can clean the dishes and do the floor and rearrange the furniture and do my taxes
Uh-huh.
before we leave for this very important trip.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to do that. That's been real problematic. I just think that like I'm way more efficient than I actually am in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, no, I don't know what it is, but like sometimes I can like forget what month it is. And if something irregular is happening, so like for example, I had an appointment set last week and Rosie got a fever overnight. And because I knew we were staying home the next day, the appointment was an online appointment. And I had looked at it on the calendar the night before and I was like, okay, I'm doing that. But it was like it's like an etch a sketch. Like when something new happens and it's like, okay, this is the new expectation for the day, it just disappears. And it's happened to me so many times and it's like so embarrassing. That's probably like the number one hard like thing to explain because you're just like, I'm so sorry, like I forgot. My brother-in-law, um, his birthday was a week or so ago. And on Sunday, you go to church, you come home, you take a nap, and then sometimes it feels like I knew his birthday was Monday. And I was like, oh, cool, yeah, I gotta remember to, call Joe and sing to him. And I went out that night to watch a friend play some music, and I was walking up to the jazz club, and I was like, "Oh, I should call Joe. I can't believe I let the whole day go by and I didn't call him because I felt like it was Monday." So I called him and I was like, "Hey, Joe, happy birthday!" Like sang to him the whole thing, and I was like, "Oh yeah, did you guys have fun today?" He said, "Oh yeah, well, I think most of it's gonna be tomorrow since that's when my birthday is." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then, like in absolute true form, I forgot to call him the next day.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, double win. But
That's
technically,
wild.
I was the first to say happy birthday, so I won in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the number one for both of us is just being on time for commitments. And I think that's like something that's just so embarrassing, really.
yeah. There's a little bit of time optimism when you're doing family stuff too. It's like, oh, we just have to throw them in the car, but then it's like somebody needs a snack, somebody has to go to the bathroom. Do we have water? And then it's like we're late. That's it. It's over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have put into practice
Hmm.
is to not make my days so busy.
Yeah, that was something that unfortunately took me way too long to learn. I was running burnt out for so long that like
Mhm.
just crazy.
Yeah, at some point, I was running my own business. I was going to school. I was like preaching and doing Sunday school.
Yeah, that was too much.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
I was doing all the things, and you could only sustain something like that for so long.
I mean anybody, but
Hmm.
it's double for the
Yeah.
neurodiverse because so like this is another thing that it means for me to be ADHD is that like if I start to get worn down, I get irritable first and then I get depressed and then I lose complete interest in all of life.
Hmm.
And that is not a symptom of anything but burnout.
Burnout, ADHD, ADHD,
Burnout.
burnout.
Yeah, autistic
What's that?
burnout is the worst.
How's that work? How's that work out?
It's
How's
absolutely
that?
awful. Like, so, I mean, even with starting this podcast, I've been noticing these, like, because when you're starting something, it's like you got to set up all social media, do all, there's like all this like front end push stuff. And so I noticed, like, when I have, like, probably after today, we're doing 2 episodes in one day,
Mhm.
probably tomorrow, I'm going to feel like I don't want to touch this podcast. Like, I don't even want to do this
You,
anymore.
prob-
What happens is if I push it too far, like if I spend 8 hours editing tomorrow, which would be like a horrible
Please don't
idea,
do that.
I don't work at all on any level for 8 hours anymore. Like if when I push it a little too hard, then I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed. And it's not just tiredness and then that irritability, want to withdraw. And it's just like into the second day, it's like, oh man, what's wrong with me? Like, I can't believe it. And then you start getting all down on yourself. And then, but if I can just take my foot off the gas and let myself just be tired
Mm,
and just stop as much as I can, like just do what's needed and not like what's ideal. Generally, I wake up the day after that and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good now, you know. But if you don't know why that is, that can be deeply, deeply troubling because typically if you don't know why it's happening, you're like, oh, well, I'm depressed, so I gotta go to the gym and I gotta go to the grocery store and get some healthy food and I gotta, but if you have that type of brain, you need to sit down,
slow.
eat the healthiest thing that's in your house and sit in the sun like a cat and then go back to bed. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
watch the Great British Bake Off, watch The Office. Don't hurt yourself.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
something comfortable there.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I would have never, ever let myself do before figuring out
Mhm.
what I was working with.
Yeah, I was dealing with a lot of burnout, and it would really drag on to like some really deep, dark
Oh, yeah. You get
places.
super like existential and
Mhm.
moody and all like the deep feeling emos out there. Like, you probably got a touch of the tiz, you know,
Oh yeah,
like just
yeah,
something.
all those Ohio kids for sure.
Ohio kids?
Yeah, that's where like started.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I
Yeah, that sounds,
think.
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
Anyway,
Or
I would not say that I had a special interest, but looking back, and also like considering the high functioning female characteristics,
mm,
I think my answer would be different now.
mm,
And I think fashion has been a special interest of mine, and then music has always been a special interest of mine.
mm.
I used to beat CDs to death and like memorize every single word and just be obsessed with it until like I could not stand it anymore, and then I'd move on to a new album. It was more cost effective that way, also.
Yeah, I would go in streaks until I would like I'd get into something, then I'd burn out of it, and then I'd get into something different.
Hmm.
As a kid growing up, a lot of it was like centered around video games, stuff like that. Um,
Seems like you've always been into cars too.
yeah, I really like cars.
Ka-chow.
How do you, Kuchow, good Kachiga, actually.
Oh,
It all kind of a blur at this point, right?
hmm,
Like I know a lot about geography and cars
yeah, you
and
know a lot about a lot of stuff.
history and like I don't know, anime,
Yeah,
you know? So,
I love a good deep dive.
yeah. Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
or like when I had a chronic illness that I was working with that took me a few years to bounce back from. What actually started me on this in the first place was that I started to notice that as my chronic illness symptoms got better, through all the things that I was doing, that my mental was getting better. And I think two things were happening. One was that I was only resting because I literally could not do anything else. And then also I was detoxing a lot. Um, And I'm not saying just go out there and randomly detox because there is a way to do it. But yeah, so I've started to connect those dots. And then, so I was constantly doing deep dives on like these very like chicken and egg things, with like mental and physical and mental and physical.
Hmm.
And, how to do heavy metal detox, how to do parasite detox, liver cleansing, doing this thing and that thing, and this product and that product and this ingredient and that ingredient. And basically, like, we just say we have like PhD in Google, like just find out where to get the information. Like, I mean, one of my coaching sessions is like a lot more helpful than six doctor's visits. Not medical advice. It's at your own risk. But when you're dealing with mystery chronic stuff and mental health, like lifelong shenanigans, there's usually a couple players there that are consistent. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, but I love a good deep dive.
Oh my gosh,
They
yeah.
can be problematic at times. I find that for me, part of my autism is that I hate information gaps. I must know the entire peripheral, like all the context, if it's a possibility. If it's not a possibility, then that becomes part of the context. I love you. Um, Information gaps. Yeah, it makes me feel
How do you feel about verbal stimulations?
I like it a lot. A
Yeah.
lot, a lot. I'm like a in-house jingle writer
Hmm.
for like everything on earth. Love it.
Yeah, we've been singing songs in our marriage since day one. Ponytail is long, your ponytail is long. I love you and your ponytail is long.
It's
Yeah,
a classic.
yeah, you just kind of make up
Classic.
songs. Yeah,
Mhm.
like all of our kids had songs.
There's a lot of like it's like an operetta in here sometimes. We're just like
We had a
narrating, like
turtle.
song narrating.
We had a turtle, and for breakfast there was a song.
Turtle breakfast
Breakfast time.
time.
Mm,
Yeah, just a little phrase.
yeah,
Yeah.
you are my
My you're my
my
you're my confidant.
confidant. You
You're
are
my
my
lawyer.
lawyer.
I have no idea. No idea why that was a thing, what it was. Try, 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 Triceratops. Yeah,
Triceratops.
there's like
Yeah.
all kinds of just you
Mm.
don't even know the origin of them anymore, but some of them.
Desayuno.
Yeah, oh, no, 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 no. That's actually the wrong song reference.
It is. It's
Desayuno,
sayuno,
desayuno,
desayuno,
baby.
baby.
Yeah, Despacito was not out
That
yet
wasn't it.
that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
wasn't it. I had them mixed up.
That was when we were at a Mexican resort and they had all you could eat breakfast.
Hmm.
Desayuno, for those of you who speak Spanish,
Spanish.
makes it fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. Yeah, a lot of times, if you ever get just that need to say words over and over again, that might be an indication.
When a word feels so good to say in your
Hmm.
mouth that you must repeat it,
Hmm.
like as though you're eating M&Ms, like mini M&Ms. You know how many of those you need? Like so many. They feel so. You ever just like dumped a whole tube of minis in your mouth? It's like the best thing
I've
ever.
seen you do it. I've seen you do it.
Uh, mm. Shout out to my sister, the OG mini M&M tube crusher.
So how about your clothes?
Hmm.
You have changed how you dress.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I
Tell
hate.
me about your evolution
Yeah,
of dress.
because I've always loved fashion, like to the point where like I wanted to go to NYU and go to fashion school. My parents wouldn't let me, because they said graphic design was more practical, and now you can buy Canva for $15 a month and it'll do everything you want for $15.
Mhm.
Um, so more practical in a way. Like wouldn't change a thing, would not. I wouldn't. It's just like who knows the future. That's really what I learned from that. Anyway, clothes. I used to wear so many uncomfortable things and be cold all the time, and it would make me so tired. So much polyester, and I just can't anymore. I don't do it. I am the queen of the sweatshirt and the Gen Z jeans. Like, I thank God for this generation because not only do I have options to be more comfortable, it's like less frowned upon.
It's cool.
Yeah, and I'm cool now.
Mhm.
I'm free. No more skinny pants. I have retired from skinny jeans. I'll never buy another pair as long as I live. That's like as close to a vow as I will come. No more skinny
That's pretty
jeans.
serious.
Yeah, for real. For real. What does it look like? It sometimes my autism can look like when I'm having trouble remembering something, there's just something about doing something like where you kind of clap or you like wave your hands a little bit and then you can remember something again. I don't know what that is. It's like you have like a kinetically powered brains or something. But yeah, obviously like you can tell like the patterns of conversation here, like sometimes it's hard to pay attention. Um
No way.
yeah. Hard to just remember things in general and to pay attention. My eyes are definitely moving around a lot right now. I have allowed myself to be more lenient with eye contact. Especially around people who like I'm already comfortable with. Like I will definitely make more eye contact with like a new person or um, whatever. My favorite thing to do is if I notice that people are naturally like if they naturally drift around and then they're like and you could see them like remember that they're supposed to make eye contact with you and then look at me again, I'll be like, you don't have to look at me, it's fine. And then they'll just talk like this again. I'm like, yes. I just like love that. Like, no, I'm getting all the information. Like, because truly, like it's too much information to look and listen. Yeah. Like if I'm
Actually,
actively
yeah.
listening, like I know you've noticed this, where
Oh
like
yeah.
I actually have to turn my face away and I usually am making a face like this. So sometimes it looks like I'm mad, but really it's just like this is a stim that's helping me pay attention to what you're saying. And then I can be like and I will actually say, I'm listening, I just want to like put it together, especially if it's like a problem solving situation. I will have to go in a little bit and
I have a question for you.
oh,
How do you do with transitions?
I like to sit in the car a lot. You do too.
Yeah, I
You're a
do.
car sitter.
Yeah. I have. Can I? I'm gonna bring something up. You might.
Sure,
You
it's
you
fine.
can cut it if
It's
you want.
fine. No, bring it up.
One of the things that she absolutely hates is if she is on a screen or on a phone call, and all you want to do is relay a small bit of information. It is like she's ready to fight you with all
Please don't interrupt my activities.
It is a stupid thing to do.
There's this one reel out there. It's so funny. It's like this deadpan, like April Ludgate vibing girl, and she was like, "If your partner has ADHD, let
You
me,
better listen up.
if your partner is
'Cause
doing something, don't talk to them. Did you talk to them? It was a stupid thing to do. If you interrupt me and I haven't hit the peak of like what I'm hoping to get out of whatever that sermon is,
it's a part of the
yeah,
hyperfixation, I think.
yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah.
It's because once because you're in flow state. Someone's interrupting your flow state, right? Like so interrupting like scrolling is like not anger inducing. But if I'm on the computer, like today, I was trying to solve some social media mystery problem and Frank came in and was like, "Do you want me to help you or do you want me to try?" And I was like, I was so mad. I was so mad. I was like, I just started trying. And for me to explain, but it was a reflection of the fact that I'm still tired from being sick and that I shouldn't have been doing it anyway. Right. So I flipped out on him. And like 5 minutes later, I was like, I am sorry, I cat scratched your face. Like that
Mm.
was not what I should have done.
Uh,
And he was just trying to help me. And he did figure out why it wasn't working.
It didn't take that long.
And he didn't hold it against me because he's the best.
Yeah, I mean, and that, a lot of these things by themselves are pretty innocuous, but having the constellation or the cocktail,
Yeah.
right, of those idiosyncrasies, I can say that, can make relations just so hard. And I think
Relationships.
relations like to relate to anybody, period. Like we're talking about just
Sorry, there's just like another connotation to the word relations.
like coitus. a big fan of different words for the same thing that you could just, you gotta expand your. Yeah, you good? You right there?
Fine. Let's get
Hey,
clinical.
this is the NeuroSpicy,
Stop.
right?
Stop.
No,
But anyway,
the
moving on.
difficulties in relationships.
Relationships.
Yeah,
Relationships. And
relationships.
words and the meaning of them and the subtext and context of them. Wow. That's part of my autism, for sure. Overanalyzing words to the max. So back to coitus. Just the way you said it. Is it even spelled that way? It's coitus.
Is it coitus?
I think so.
I don't know. Um, yeah, having that cocktail in a relationship can make it pretty difficult to both parties, and being able to again have that um diagnosis is just like so much easier and free. It's so much more easy for I think both of us to go like look at each other when we're having one of these episodes and
Mm-hmm.
just go, ah,
Yes,
okay, okay.
it's taken so much pressure out of our marriage
Mhm.
because then we can both also be like rejection sensitive in like different ways.
Oh
So
yeah.
like if I'm like being bitey and like spitting venom in his face because I'm overstimulated, like and he takes it super personally,
I get really sad.
yeah, it makes him really sad. But if
Mhm.
he knows it's like not a personal thing and that like I'm gonna apologize for it in like 35 seconds, and the fact that I apologize for it doesn't make it okay. It's not like that it's my goal to just allow that to happen all the time.
Mm,
But again, it's as we keep saying, these more problematic things that come out, these more reactionary things, are a reflection of what's happening in the background. And if we live together, we know all what's happening in each other's lives. So often one of us is figuring out what's wrong with the other before the other one does. And this used to be more of like a codependent problematic thing, and now it's kind of more like a gumshoe teamwork situation.
yeah, yeah,
I think it's healthier now. We've already have all those detective skills, but now it's just kind of like, okay, where do we go? Did we go to eat somewhere yesterday? Like, do we go to a museum with the kids yesterday? Is something coming up that's like
Yeah,
creating a little bit of
did we
tension?
see something scary?
Did we see something? When do we see
I
scary
don't know. We
things?
don't really see a lot of scary
I don't
stuff.
like scary stuff. I'm too sensitive for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. No. Yeah, so we're able to kind of be like, hey, remember, like, this happened yesterday. Like, so just be nice to yourself today. Or, like, hey, do you need some time to, like, be by yourself and, like,
Mhm.
recharge? You want to go take a shower? Yeah, so that's what it looks like is
Mhm.
just kind of looking out for the needs of the other. Because when you are overstimulated, it's harder to take care of yourself. So that's why it's like, important to, like, have those skills and tools ahead of time. And it's important to have someone to help support you ahead of time.
Mhm.
So like my heart goes out to the all the single folk out there who are doing this.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, so I just, gotta keep those friends. You gotta call them.
Yeah,
You gotta text them.
yeah, it's really easy
Need some
to
peeps.
like
So someone who knows you.
bounce
Yeah.
and like
Hmm.
disappear as a ADHD friend.
Hmm.
Yeah, super easy. That's not good. It's not good.
Yeah. Need a couple peeps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really have a lot of things. Well, that's not true.
Mhm.
In the past, my autism has looked like an eating disorder. When I transitioned out of college, it was just so much change so fast, and I had like broken up with a boyfriend. And my last season of softball was really disappointing because I had worked super hard, and then all these stud freshmen came in, like took all the spots that I would have taken. So that was really disappointing. And then I went to Europe for the summer, and I was like basically by myself all that time with like my thoughts and feelings, and they were not palatable. And so I just like binged and purged all summer long,
Mhm.
and God rest me, you rescued me from that 100%. That was like there was a miracle I experienced later on where like he had literally like made something disappear from my stomach that was like not like when you eat chocolate, you ate chocolate, and it was just like there was nothing in there. And I literally heard God be like, "You're done now. Like this is not going to happen anymore." And that was like when I started going back to church,
Oh,
which is crazy. So,
I don't think I remember you ever telling me that one.
really,
I don't think so.
hmm, it was. Cadbury chocolate eggs. Not
Ooh,
Cadbury cream eggs, the little
little
chocolate ones
chocolate
with the
eggs.
crispy shell
Yeah,
on
yeah, I know
them.
what you're talking about.
They were so good. Yeah, just that's like a major comfort and a stim to just eat a ton of something that you really like. And even like the feeling of being full is like a stim. And then the endorphins that you get from throwing up, it's just like that's actually they're starting to say that if you've ever had an eating disorder, that that is like a criteria for ASD. Not like clinically, but they're starting to correlate these things because there's like that amount of emotional dysregulation that is alleviated by a sensory input. Um, it makes sense with the profile. So
Mhm.
again, do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Do do do. Anybody get that reference?
Isn't that Reading Rainbow?
Yeah.
More you know.
No,
Yeah, I love doing that. The left hook, change it.
the double pivot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We love puns.
I do love puns.
Yeah.
I do love puns.
Hmm.
Love really bad jokes.
And I think that's a result of literal thinking because when you're hearing a word with a double meaning, I can't tell you how often this just happens with my kids. And I was also always called Little Miss Literal in my house, where if
That's
there was a
beautiful alliteration. I love that.
yeah, if there was a secondary meaning to something, you just try out like
Hmm.
the joke of like the other meaning of the word. And I just think it's the natural propensity to like associate it with whatever the most concrete side of the word is
Hmm.
and then turn it into a pun. I think that is I'm not saying if you love puns that you're autistic. I'm just saying
Good.
you might be really good and quick with them if uh if that's something you're into.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I feel like this segment, this whole this whole episode is like an almost like a what was that? Was that a redneck comedy
Yes, you
thing?
might be
You
redneck
might
if.
be a redneck
Exactly.
if.
Yeah.
I feel like you could have thrown that in a lot of parts of this podcast.
Well, we don't want to make it dorky.
Speak for yourself. Um, so I know that you wanted to share something here, and I'm going to pivot into this thing that you wanted to talk about because it was very meaningful.
It was, yeah.
So
So
can you, what's going on?
yeah, so as I had mentioned, it's been hard for me to just kind of like be okay with just saying out loud, like directly, I'm autistic without a caveat or anything else has been like very difficult for me. And I brought this up to I'm working with a Christian business coach who's a spiritual director. So basically the way that he works is that, a lot of problems in your business or hangups in your business are a reflection of things going on inside of you, personal things. And so we just pray through those things together and, just ask Jesus to interact with what we have and to exchange something, to give us something better, to speak a better word over that. So, um, I was bringing up that I was just scared. I'm just like fundamentally uncomfortable talking about it. And which is crazy considering what we're doing, but, that's God, right? Pardon me. So he was like, okay. He's like, so I'm hearing the lie that like there's something wrong with you. He's like, so let's see what Jesus does. So basically, like through the course of praying and asking more questions and listening and taking into consideration, of course, are these things that Jesus would say? Is this in tune with the character of God? Things like that. But basically, what happened was I was standing like on the edge of this really big dark chasm because I was just like really fearing criticism and rejection over like these ideas and like saying publicly that I have um, I have autism and just like trying to figure out all the things that might be down there, but it was so dark and I couldn't see. And I wasn't feeling like I wanted to jump. I didn't feel like I was going to fall in. I was just like I couldn't make it out. Couldn't see the details. And I could perceive that like Jesus was behind me. And I turned around and he was holding this like little tiny baby lamb. And he handed me the lamb. And so I instinctively took a couple steps away from the edge. Um, and that, yeah. And so I'm holding it and it's like very soft and and it's comfy in my arms. Like, and again, like this is just, I'm not going to caveat it. If you've never been through an experience like this, that's okay. But this was very real. Um, so I was holding this little lamb, and all of a sudden I looked down and I recognized that it was actually a baby, and I realized that it's me as a baby, and I look down at the baby, and the baby has its eyes open, and I can see these like sparkly green colors in the baby's eyes, and I can see it really clearly, and um, and I feel like I'm like the first person to have ever gotten like a full look at this baby, this little person. And it got me like really emotional. And yeah, and after that I kind of felt like Jesus like prompting me to look at him. And which is really, really significant because I've had some like inner healing experiences before, and I've never ever been able to see Jesus's face. And I recognize why now. So as I looked up at him, he just met me with like the like deepest, most comfortable eye contact like I've ever perceived. Aside from with you, but even we struggle with eye contact. Like I love your nose. I stare at Frank's nose a lot. But anyway, so I'm making this like wonderful eye contact with Jesus, and um and it's almost like I'm like wincing because I don't know what he's gonna do when I'm looking at him, and he's just like very at ease, and he's like, you're not gonna see any rejection on my face. You're never gonna see that from me. And that was just like, oh my gosh, he was like, I see you, like I see all of you, and all those little sparkly bits of you. Um, like I put those things there. And um, so that was just wild. And, so I say, Jesus, I give you the lie that something is wrong with me. And, you know, forgive like myself for making me like hide and like because some people have been uncomfortable with all of me, and this isn't just like in the last year like over this one word. This is like my whole life, just like putting on different versions of myself. And as I'm talking to him I keep looking down and I keep feeling him be like almost like lifting my head, like, and I just keep looking up at him, and it was just amazing to just be so received. Like in and even over this exact topic, I was so afraid to like have Jesus look at me and be like, it's wrong for you to say you're autistic, or like to say like this is fake or this is wrong. And he was just like, I put those things there.
Mm.
Like, I like you this way. Like when people pick apart songs about like God says he loves you how you are, and they're like, no, because you're sinful. So like those are parts of you. No, you are more yourself the less than you have in your life, right? Like the way that we were created to be, like to be in communion with God, our sin and our brokenness is not us. We are more ourselves the more healed we are.
Mm. Mm.
So don't forget that.
Mm-mm.
And
Wow. Wow.
yeah. And then there was this other little like tail end thing where I was like, so what do I do like with rejection? Like when people reject this idea or whatever part of me. And this rock kind of materializes in my hands like about the same size as the baby. And I was like, what do I do with it? And he was like, well, you can come show it to me, and we can look at it together and then I can throw it away for you. If you need to look at it, I'll show you like, yeah, this part's valid, this part's not, like, and then I'll chuck it into the chasm. That's what the chasm's for. And I was like, like, can I do that? Like, will I actually be able to like
Mm.
do that? And um, I think Jesus is so amazing. And I can't believe he said this, but I thought it was so funny. And I've helped them say, I know autistics love rocks, but you can either hold the baby or you can hold the rock. You can't hold both. So we can either hold the rejection that people are offering us over, you know, whoever it is that we have to say out loud that we are in order to be more healed and more free, or we can hold the child that God created, that he put all those things into on purpose because there are intentions for those things. But we can't hold both at the same time. So if we can hold on to what Jesus sees in us, that rejection will not stick to us.
That's great.
Surprised I got through that without crying because I was bawling. So we're gonna leave you with that. Thanks for joining us today on the NeuroSpicy Soul Cat Soul Neuro
NeuroSpicy Soul Care
Coitus.
podcast.
We done. It's tired. I'm tie time. We did it. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram for more updates. Please subscribe on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, and drop us a review, baby.
Finger guns.
Ka-chow.
Jigga.
Let's turn down the fire
And embrace the spice.
for the glory of God. Peace be with you.